It was an ordinary Tuesday morning when Bruce's life took an unexpected turn. He was in the kitchen, enjoying his routine breakfast, when he heard the mailman drop something in the mailbox. Still holding his cup, Bruce walked to the door and found a thick, sealed envelope, marked with an elegant and formal crest. His curiosity was immediately piqued. Taking the envelope inside, Bruce called out to Helena, his wife, who was tidying up the living room. "Helena, look what just arrived," he said, running his hand over the thick paper. Helena approached with a slight smile, wiping her hands on her apron. "What is it?" "It looks important," she remarked, peering over Bruce's shoulder as he opened the envelope. Inside, they found a letter written in an elegant, flowing script. Bruce began to read it aloud, and the news was unbelievable. A distant relative had passed away and, for mysterious reasons, had left him a substantial inheritance. "Are you kidding?" Helena exclaimed, her eyes widening as the reality of Bruce's words sank in. I don't think so," Bruce stammered, his hands trembling slightly with the letter. "It says here I'm the last remaining heir." "Helena, this changes everything." Helena took the letter, reading it again as if to confirm they weren't dreaming. "Bruce, it's more money than we could ever imagine." She jumped into his arms, laughing with a mix of joy and disbelief. The two sat at the kitchen table, the letter between them, beginning to dream of the possibilities. With eyes gleaming with excitement, Helena started talking about traveling around the world, bigger houses, new cars, everything money could buy. Bruce, still somewhat dazed, nodded, his heart warmed by Helena's enthusiasm. "What if we invested in something? Maybe a business we've always wanted to start," he suggested, his mind already racing with practical ideas. "And of course, we can help our families, give something to our parents. They would never have to worry about money again," Helena added, generosity flowing as freely as her aspirations. At that kitchen table, with the sunlight beginning to filter through the curtains, Bruce and Helena planned a future together, full of wealth and promise. They talked about every detail, every dream that now seemed within reach. Initially, everything was about joint plans and shared decisions, a testament to the strength of the relationship they had built over the years. But as the sun set, something in Helena's gaze began to change. The excitement gave way to a glint of ambition that Bruce had never seen before. It was a glimpse of future transformations that would soon begin to take shape, deep within Helena's heart, marking the beginning of a completely new chapter in their lives. As the inheritance money began to materialize in their bank accounts, Helena seemed to blossom in a way Bruce had never witnessed. The initial purchases were cautious, even timid: a new handbag from a famous designer, shoes she had always wanted but never allowed herself to have. But as the bank statements reflected their growing fortune, these sporadic purchases turned into an avalanche of spending. "Bruce, look at this piece," Helena exclaimed, twirling in front of the mirror with a silk dress that looked more like a work of art. "And the designer is the same one who dresses the celebrities." Bruce smiled, admiring his wife. "You look beautiful," he said, and it was true. But behind his smile, a sense of unease began to take shape. Helena was changing, not just in her wardrobe but in her behavior as well. The passion for shopping soon expanded to travel. "Bruce, what do you think about going to Paris next week?" Helena suggested while flipping through a luxury travel magazine. "And after that, maybe Tokyo. I hear spring there is unforgettable." Bruce, who had never left the country before the inheritance, found himself boarding private jets, staying in hotel suites that cost more per night than he used to earn in a month. "Of course, darling," he agreed, trying to absorb the cultures and landscapes as quickly as Helena planned the next adventure. With each new stamp in their passports, Helena acquired jewelry and clothes, each piece more extravagant than the last. Dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants became routine, and the wine they drank was always the best in the cellar. One sunny afternoon, after returning from a trip to the Maldives, Helena dragged Bruce to another extravagance, this time an art gallery. "Bruce, let's buy that sculpture for the living room," she said, pointing to an abstract and imposing piece. "Well, it's unique," Bruce responded, struggling to understand the art that Helena seemed to adore instantly. "Are you sure?" He was already mentally calculating the cost of the piece. Helena laughed, a sound that seemed both carefree and distant. "Darling, money is meant to be spent. Besides, it's an investment, don't you think?" As Helena proceeded with her grand plans, the seed of concern in Bruce's heart silently grew. He watched, increasingly disconcerted, as the money seemed to change not only Helena's lifestyle but her very essence. Conversations about the future and helping their families became less frequent, replaced by more immediate plans of luxury and leisure. This transformation of Helena, from the simple and content woman he had married to this new figure, almost unrecognizable in her opulence and indulgence, left Bruce uneasy. The initial joy of being able to provide everything Helena desired was slowly being replaced by a question that echoed in his mind. How far would this new life take them? It was on a cold night, when the city lights shone distantly through the windows of their new luxury apartment, that Bruce realized just how much things had changed. And as Helena slept peacefully beside him, he wondered if the fortune they had received was truly a blessing or perhaps the prelude to something far less auspicious. As days turned into months, the change in Helena became increasingly evident and troubling for Bruce. The luxury continued to mold her, sculpting from her original humility a domineering and often selfish figure. She began to behave less like the loving partner she once was and more like an empress in her opulent kingdom, expecting her whims to be met without question. On one particularly tense afternoon, while the couple was reviewing plans for yet another renovation of their already luxurious home, Helena's new authoritative side became clear. "Bruce, I want the second floor completely redecorated. I'm thinking of something modern, maybe a minimalist yet luxurious theme," she dictated, flipping through an interior design magazine. Bruce, already feeling the weight of the continuous expenses, tried to interject some practical sense. "Helena, we've renovated the house 3 times this year. Maybe we should." Helena cut him off with a cold look. "Bruce, money is not an issue. I want our house to reflect our status. This is not the time to save, it's the time to impress." Bruce swallowed hard, nodding in agreement, though every fiber of his being wanted to protest. The dynamic between them had dangerously tilted, with Helena assuming a commanding role that left little room for his opinion. This new reality was a constant source of internal conflict for Bruce. Each decision Helena made without considering him widened the emotional distance between them. He began to feel more like an accessory in her glamorous life than a partner. The nights once filled with conversations and laughter were now occupied by extravagant parties and social events where Helena shone while Bruce retreated to the shadows, his discomfort growing. During an opulent dinner with influential friends, the tension reached a new peak. While Helena laughed and toasted, Bruce remained silent, his mind turbulent. After the guests left, he confronted Helena, vulnerability evident in his voice. "Helena, I feel like we're losing ourselves in all this. This," he gestured to the ostentatiously decorated room, "doesn't feel real. It's not who we were." Helena, still holding a glass of wine, turned to him with a look of disdain. "Bruce, this is our reality now. You need to adapt. We're living a dream most people wish for. Don't ruin it with your cheap nostalgia." Helena's words were a blow, leaving Bruce stunned and even more isolated. He wondered where the sweet, understanding woman he had married had gone. In her place, a cold and calculating stranger had emerged, someone whose love for luxury outweighed what they had built together. Retreating to the solitary refuge of his office, Bruce sat down, his heart heavy with deep sadness. The silence of the large, coldly elegant house echoed the growing emptiness in his heart. It was in this moment of solitude that Bruce realized how distant they had become and how his life, once full of love and simplicity, had turned into a theater of vanity and disillusionment. As he contemplated his situation, a painful revelation began to take shape. Bruce knew things needed to change, but the magnitude of the necessary transformation intimidated him. It was a crossroads he feared but could no longer ignore. The choices he was about to make would not only define his future, but could also either recover or completely destroy the man he still hoped to be. On that fateful day, as the last autumn leaves gently fell, Bruce sat in his office, surrounded by piles of financial papers and bank statements. The cold light from the monitor reflected on his tired face, illuminating the harsh reality that the numbers couldn't deny. The account balance, once a robust and comforting figure, was now a grim reminder of how quickly fortune could evaporate under the heat of unrestrained consumption. Helena, indifferent to financial worries, continued in her bubble of indulgence, planning yet another extravagant party. Bruce, with a heavy sigh, stood up and went to meet her in the vast living room, where she was checking event details with the organizer. "Helena, we need to talk," Bruce began, his voice laden with the gravity of what he was about to say. Helena looked at him, impatient. "What is it now, Bruce?" "I'm busy, as you can see." Bruce swallowed hard, gathering his courage. "Helena, the money. It's running out. Our spending has outpaced our reserves. We need to stop this. We need to adjust." Helena laughed, a cold sound that didn't reach her eyes. "You've always been weak, Bruce. Unable to enjoy the life given to you. Always worried, always saving. I will not live in mediocrity again." Bruce felt as if he had been stabbed. "This isn't about mediocrity, Helena. It's reality. If we continue like this, we'll be bankrupt." Helena stepped closer to him, her face inches from his, fury blazing in her eyes. "Let me be clear, Bruce. If you're broke, that's your problem. I'm not going to stop my life because you can't manage a simple check." The acidity in Helena's words cut Bruce deeply. "Helena, I thought we were in this together. That we were a team." Helena shrugged, disdainful. "Wake up, Bruce. The team was convenient when there was something for me. Now, I see I need to take care of myself." With those final words, Helena grabbed her designer handbag and walked towards the door. A luxury car waited for her, with a man Bruce vaguely recognized as a regular at the parties they hosted. Helena got into the car without looking back, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume and broken promises. Bruce stood there, watching the car disappear around the bend of the long driveway. The mansion, once filled with laughter and love, now felt like a tomb, large, cold, and empty. Helena's words echoed in his mind, each syllable a hammer shattering what was left of his broken heart. In that moment, Bruce realized not only the money was gone, but also the woman he thought he loved. He walked slowly back to his office, his footsteps echoing through the silent corridors. Sitting down, he looked at the papers that told the story of his rise and fall. Now, completely alone, Bruce faced not only financial ruin but also emotional devastation. The mansion's walls seemed to close in on him, and loneliness was a heavy, constant companion. It was the beginning of a dark chapter, where he would have to navigate the turbulent waters of an uncertain future and rebuild his life from the ruins of a crumbled empire. After Helena's devastating departure, Bruce felt the weight of the world collapse on his shoulders. The humiliation was not just private, it had witnesses, as the household staff and some curious neighbors watched the final scene of his marriage's collapse. Helena, dressed in one of her most ostentatious outfits, not only got into the car with a triumphant smile, but made sure to degrade Bruce one last time in front of everyone's eyes. As the car pulled away, she lowered the window, her voice dripping with scorn. "Goodbye, Bruce. Maybe you'll learn something about success in your next life." Her laughter cut through the air like a blade, and the man beside her, her lover, joined in with a mocking grin. The staff, who once treated him with deference, now avoided his gaze, murmuring among themselves. Bruce, standing at the entrance of the mansion that no longer felt like home, felt loneliness settle fiercely in his chest. He walked back inside, each step echoing on the marble like a reminder of his new reality. That night, the house seemed exceptionally quiet. Bruce wandered through the rooms, each decorated according to Helena's whims, now monuments of a love that proved to be conditional. Photos of happy trips and glamorous parties mocked his current misery. In a fit of impulse, he began taking these photos down from the walls and shelves, his hands shaking with rage and disgust. Finally, exhausted and emotionally drained, Bruce sat on the living room sofa, the darkness around him only illuminated by the distant city lights. Bitter tears began to stream down his face as he contemplated the emptiness of his existence. Helena's betrayal had not only deprived him of companionship, but left him questioning his own worth. In the days that followed, the reality of his financial situation began to manifest in more concrete ways. Calls and more calls from creditors demanding payments filled his mornings with stress. Each conversation was a reminder of how far he had fallen. One day, as Bruce watched the sunrise through the kitchen window, a decision began to take shape in his mind. He couldn't continue like this. It was time to face the consequences of his past choices and start planning a way forward. Determined to confront his finances head-on, Bruce headed to his office, where stacks of unpaid bills awaited him. It was at this moment, immersed in papers and numbers, that he received a call that would further change the course of his life. It was from an old friend, Thomas, who had heard about his situation and offered not just words of consolation, but a proposal that could be the key to his redemption. In the grim days following Helena's humiliating departure, Bruce was forced to face the harsh reality of his financial situation. Bills piled up at the door like autumn leaves, each one demanding payments he could no longer meet. The wealth that once provided him with a life of unrestrained luxury was now just a distant memory, leaving behind a trail of insurmountable debts. With the mansion being repossessed by creditors due to his inability to pay, Bruce found himself homeless. He packed what little remained into a worn suitcase and, with one last look at what had once been his home, closed the door behind him. The sound of the lock clicking echoed his new reality. Bruce was officially without anything. Devoid of options, he began to wander the streets of the city he once dominated with his charismatic presence. Now, a ghost of his former self, he roamed aimlessly, often spending nights on park benches under the cold glow of streetlights, wrapped in a thin blanket that barely kept the night chill at bay. On one such night, as Bruce huddled under an overpass, trying to find warmth in a bottle of cheap coffee, a familiar voice called his name. He looked up, seeing through the fog of despair the figure of Thomas, his old friend and business partner, from whom he had grown distant during his years of abundance. "Bruce. My God, Bruce, is that really you?" Thomas's voice was laden with concern and disbelief. He approached, squatting beside Bruce with a look of deep sympathy. Bruce, ashamed and reluctant, averted his gaze. "Thomas, I lost everything," he murmured, his voice a hoarse whisper. Thomas placed a hand on Bruce's shoulder, squeezing gently. "I heard, Bruce. I heard about Helena and everything that happened. I couldn't believe it was true until now. How did you end up here?" The words were hard for Bruce, each one a reminder of his mistakes and failures. "The debts, they consumed me. I was a fool, Thomas. I lived in illusion, and now I'm paying the price." Thomas shook his head, his expression serious, but his eyes gleamed with a resolute determination. "You're not going through this alone, Bruce. I won't let you. Come with me. I have a place where you can stay. We'll figure this out together." With Thomas's help, Bruce stood up, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in many weeks. Together, they walked through the dark streets towards Thomas's house, a safe haven against the despair Bruce had known. As they walked away from the overpass, wheels began to turn in Bruce's mind. He knew the road ahead would be arduous, but the presence of a loyal friend by his side sparked a sense of optimism. What he didn't yet know was that this reunion with Thomas would not only provide a roof over his head, but also open a new door, a new beginning he could never have imagined. Thomas's house was situated on a quiet suburban street, a stark contrast to the cold, impersonal streets where Bruce had found refuge in recent weeks. Upon arrival, Thomas wasted no time in making Bruce feel at home. He showed Bruce a cozy guest room with fresh sheets and a window overlooking a small flower garden. "You can stay here as long as you need, Bruce," Thomas said as he helped Bruce settle in. "This is a safe place for you." Bruce, still shaken and emotionally drained, could only nod, the gratitude evident in his eyes. Later, sitting in Thomas's comfortable living room with 2 steaming cups of tea on the table, Bruce began to pour out the sequence of events that had led to his downfall. He spoke of Helena's betrayal, the loss of his fortune and home, and how his dignity had been shattered. Thomas listened intently, his face showing a mix of anger and sympathy. "Bruce, I'm so sorry for all of this. It's unbelievable how things fell apart so quickly for you," he said, his voice laden with sincerity. When Bruce finished, the silence between them was palpable, heavy with emotion. Thomas then leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Bruce with a firm intensity. "Bruce, look, I know it might not seem like much right now, but I opened a small restaurant a few months ago. It's nothing fancy, but it's doing well. I could use some help, someone I can trust." Bruce looked at Thomas, surprised and a bit unsure. "Thomas, I don't know anything about restaurants. I don't want to be a burden." Thomas shook his head, cutting him off. "Bruce, this isn't charity. I need help, and you need a fresh start. It's a situation that benefits us both. You're smart, you have a good head for business, and I'll teach you everything there is to know about the restaurant." Hesitant but moved by the offer, Bruce finally agreed. "All right, Thomas. I accept. Thank you. Really, thank you." In the days that followed, Bruce began working at Thomas's restaurant. It was a modest but welcoming place, with a menu that attracted a regular clientele. Bruce started with the basics, learning to manage the cash register and interact with customers. Over time, he became more involved in the management of the restaurant, bringing his own ideas to improve service and efficiency. The work routine not only provided Bruce with a necessary distraction from his troubles, but also began to restore his sense of purpose and self-esteem. Each day at the restaurant was a step in his healing journey, and he felt himself gradually rising from the ashes of his former life. With Thomas's continued support and the new sense of community the restaurant provided, Bruce began to envision a new life, one where he could redeem himself and perhaps, eventually, find peace and fulfillment. It was in this environment of renewal and learning that Bruce not only rediscovered his worth as a person but also started to make plans for the future. Plans that involved not just surviving but thriving as his new self. In Thomas's small restaurant, Bruce found a new beginning. Although starting as a waiter was a drastic change for someone who had once lived at the height of luxury, Bruce embraced the opportunity with gratitude and determination. Dressed in a simple apron and with a tray always in hand, he served customers with a smile that gradually began to return more naturally. "Good afternoon. May I suggest our special of the day?" Bruce would ask the customers, his voice gaining confidence with each interaction. He made an effort to know the regulars by name, remembering their preferences, and creating a welcoming atmosphere that began to define the restaurant as a warm community gathering spot. Thomas watched closely, impressed with how quickly Bruce adapted and began to shine in his new role. "You have a natural way with people, Bruce," Thomas remarked one afternoon as they reviewed the inventory. "I always knew you were smart in business, but you also have a real talent for this." Encouraged by these words, Bruce began to invest more energy into the restaurant. Not content with just serving, he proposed new ideas to improve the service and customer experience. "How about introducing theme nights? We could have an Italian night, a Mexican night. It would attract a more diverse clientele and add some variety to our menu," Bruce suggested during one of their planning meetings. Thomas, always open to new ideas, agreed enthusiastically. "That sounds fantastic. Let's give it a try. Will you handle the organization?" With the additional responsibility, Bruce felt revitalized. He spent hours researching recipes, decorating the space according to the themes, and even learning a bit about each culture to share stories and facts with customers during the theme nights. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and the restaurant began to earn a reputation in the city as a vibrant and innovative place. As the restaurant grew, so did the bond between Thomas and Bruce. They became not just co-workers but close friends, supporting each other through the challenges of the restaurant and personal matters. "You saved me, Thomas. I don't know how to thank you for all of this," Bruce expressed one night as they closed the restaurant together. "You're already doing it, Bruce. Seeing this place thrive is all I could ask for," Thomas replied, giving Bruce a pat on the back. As Bruce continued to build his new life, the shadow of his past began to dissipate. With each satisfied customer and every success in the restaurant, he rediscovered his worth and rebuilt his self-esteem. The restaurant was not just a means of livelihood. It had become a symbol of his resilience and ability to turn adversity into opportunity. With renewed confidence and the small restaurant flourishing under his influence, Bruce began to think about expanding his contributions even further. Inspired by the growth he had helped foster, he proposed to Thomas the idea of opening another location, using the same principles that had made their restaurant a success. It was a big ambition, but with Thomas's support, it felt like an achievable dream, one that began to form on the horizon, promising more chapters of growth and success. As the years passed, Bruce and Thomas's restaurant continued to thrive and expand. From that humble beginning with theme nights, they opened a second establishment in a more upscale neighborhood, attracting an even more diverse and affluent clientele. The reputation of their restaurants as places of excellent food and a welcoming atmosphere became a draw for the city's high society. On one particularly busy night, with the new restaurant glowing under elegant lights and lively conversations filling the air, Bruce circulated among the guests, ensuring everything ran smoothly. Impeccably dressed, he shared laughs and exchanged pleasantries with dignitaries, businesspeople, and local celebrities who now frequented their establishments regularly. "You've done an incredible job with this place, Bruce," commented an influential businessman while enjoying a carefully prepared dish. "I remember when you started as a waiter. Look at you now, a true restaurateur magnate." Bruce smiled, nodding in gratitude. "Thank you, but I wouldn't have made it here without a good friend and a bit of hard work. I've learned a lot since those days." Beside him, Thomas, who now handled daily operations more as a mentor than a manager, watched with pride. "You know, Bruce, I always knew you had it in you. You just needed the right push." The two shared a smile, reminiscing about how it all began. Now, as equal partners, they had not only transformed their lives but also the city's culinary scene. With the success of the restaurants, Bruce also found a new platform for his passions. He began organizing charity events and fundraising galas, using the restaurant spaces to support various local causes. These initiatives not only broadened his network but also gave him a sense of purpose that transcended business. "Look how a simple idea of theme nights turned into something so grand," Thomas said to Bruce during a charity event they hosted to support young local entrepreneurs. "It's true," Bruce replied, looking around at the room full of engaged and excited guests. "And to think it all started with a helping hand and a second chance." As the night progressed, Bruce felt increasingly grateful for all the twists and turns his life had taken. Each challenge faced had been a lesson, each mistake an opportunity to grow. Now, surrounded by friends, supporters, and admirers, he had not only rebuilt his life but elevated it to a level he never thought possible. As guests danced and music filled the air, Bruce allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had returned to the world of success, yes, but with a new perspective and a deeper appreciation for life's true values: friendship, resilience, and the ability to make a difference. At the end of the night, while helping to close the restaurant after the event, Bruce shared a final thought with Thomas. "Considering everything we've been through, I think we're ready to expand even more. What do you think about exploring new horizons?" Thomas, smiling in agreement, nodded. "I was thinking the same thing. Let's do it." With new ideas bubbling and plans for expansion in mind, Bruce was ready to take his journey to the next level, a step that promised even more growth, challenges, and undoubtedly more success stories to add to his already impressive legacy. One quiet afternoon at the restaurant, As Bruce was reviewing preparations for a themed night that promised to be another big hit, the front door opened, and a figure from the past walked in, bringing with him a gust of cold air and old memories. It was James, the accountant who had been fired by Helena in one of the many whims she had indulged during their days of decadent extravagance. Bruce looked up, surprised, as James approached, a hesitant smile on his face. "Bruce, it's good to see you again," James said, extending his hand. Bruce, still a bit stunned by the sudden reappearance of someone so closely tied to his tumultuous past, shook his hand. "James, this is a surprise. How did you find me here?" "I've been following the success of your restaurants," James explained, his gaze sweeping over the elegant setting. "I always knew you had the potential for great things, even during those tough times." Bruce invited James to sit at one of the more secluded tables, signaling for a waiter to bring 2 cups of coffee. As they settled in, James placed a thick folder on the table. "I didn't come just to catch up, Bruce," James began, his tone growing more serious. "I discovered something you need to know about the last few years when you were with Helena." Bruce felt a pang of anxiety. "What did you find, James?" "When Helena let me go, I wasn't just resentful, I was also worried about how she was handling your finances," James said, opening the folder. He pulled out several documents and spread them in front of Bruce. "Over the past few months, I've been conducting an independent audit. I found evidence that Helena was not only siphoning money from your joint accounts, but was also involved in substantial tax evasion." Bruce examined the documents, each line and number reviving painful memories of betrayal and loss. I had no idea," he murmured, his voice almost a whisper. James placed a supportive hand on Bruce's shoulder. "I figured you didn't. That's why I needed to show you this. Helena handled everything, and, well, she didn't leave many clues behind." "What do I do with this now?" Bruce asked, his mind spinning with the implications of the documents. "I think you should talk to a lawyer," James advised. "This information could change a lot about your divorce settlement and maybe even help you recover some of what was lost." Bruce nodded, grateful for James's loyalty and diligence. "Thank you for bringing this to me, James. I don't know how to thank you." "Seeing you thrive is thanks enough," James said with a smile. With the promise of seeking justice and perhaps reparations, Bruce now felt armed with information that could not only close a painful chapter of his life, but also open a new one with possibilities of healing and redemption. As James said his goodbyes, Bruce knew that the next steps would involve legal confrontations and tough decisions, but he was ready to face them, armed with the truth and supported by loyal friends. Following James's bombshell revelation, Bruce spent the next few days in a whirlwind of emotions and preparations. Knowing he was facing a tough and potentially drawn-out legal battle, he sought out the best attorney he could find, recommended by Thomas, who had experience in complex fraud and tax evasion cases. "Mr. Arnold, I have here documents that show a series of financial irregularities committed by my ex-wife," Bruce explained in his first meeting with the lawyer, spreading out the meticulously organized papers James had provided on the elegant office table. Arnold, an imposing man with decades of experience, examined the documents with a critical eye. "These are quite conclusive, Mr. Bruce," he nodded, his firm voice conveying a reassuring confidence. "You have a strong case, but I must warn you, cases of this nature can be long and emotionally draining." Bruce, more determined than ever, responded with resolve. "I'm ready for it. This is about justice, not just for me, but to establish the truth." With Arnold by his side, Bruce began the legal process. Weeks turned into months as the case unfolded. Testimonies were collected, evidence was presented, and court hearings often stretched for hours. Bruce found himself frequently sitting on a cold courtroom bench, listening to lawyers argue the details of his past life, each session reopening old wounds. During one of the crucial hearings, Helena was called to testify. Impeccably dressed, she tried to refute the allegations, her voice trembling slightly under the intense scrutiny. "I never did anything without Bruce's knowledge. He's just trying to defame me," Helena claimed, casting a furtive glance in Bruce's direction. Bruce's lawyer, Arnold, was relentless in his cross-examination. Then how do you explain the existence of these documents that clearly show large sums of money being transferred to overseas accounts that only you controlled? Arnold questioned, his voice echoing in the silence of the courtroom. Helena stammered, her facade beginning to crumble under the weight of the irrefutable evidence. After months of exhausting legal proceedings, the judge finally delivered the verdict. The evidence presented by Bruce was irrefutable. Helena was found guilty of financial fraud and tax evasion, and the court ordered her to compensate Bruce for her illicit actions. When the sentence was announced, a wave of relief and vindication washed over Bruce. He felt as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. While the victory couldn't undo the years of pain and betrayal, it offered closure and a chance to move forward. "You did the right thing, Bruce," Arnold said as they left the courthouse. "I hope now you can put this behind you and look to the future." Bruce nodded, deeply grateful for having had the courage to seek justice. As he walked out of the courthouse, he knew that this victory was more than legal. It was a crucial step on his path to healing and redemption. With the legal battle now behind him, Bruce could finally focus on rebuilding his life, a life free from the shadows of the past. In the aftermath of the court decision, Bruce sat alone in the small park across from the courthouse, watching the leaves slowly fall from the trees. The autumn breeze was gentle but carried a symbolism of change and renewal. As he contemplated the vibrant colors of the leaves dancing in the wind, he reflected deeply on the tumultuous journey he had traveled. "You did well, Bruce," a familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Thomas, who had come to support him during the final day of the trial. Sitting beside Bruce on the bench, he placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Bruce sighed, looking at his friend with a tired smile. "I did, didn't I? After everything, it seems surreal that it's finally over." Thomas nodded. "You fought not just for your fortune, but for your integrity. That says more about you than any bank balance could." Bruce pondered these words. "I've learned so much, Thomas. Wealth. It almost consumed me, you know? It almost destroyed what I truly value. But somehow, each challenge transformed me. I value the people in my life now more than ever." They watched in silence as a pair of children played in the distance, their laughter filling the air with a lightness Bruce hadn't felt in a long time. He continued, "Helena showed me the worst of what greed can do to a person. But on the other hand, adversity, it showed me the best in others. People like you, Thomas." Thomas smiled. "That's what friends do, Bruce. They support each other through thick and thin." With the weight of the legal battle now lifted from his shoulders, Bruce felt surprisingly light. "Now that it's over, I can start looking forward. For the first time in a long time, I'm excited about what the future might bring." "With everything you've learned, I'm sure it will be bright," Thomas said, standing up and extending a hand to help Bruce up. As they walked back to the restaurant together, Bruce thought about how he could use his experience to help others. He knew many faced similar challenges, swallowed by circumstances that seemed beyond their control, and he wanted to find a way to give back. "Thomas, I've been thinking, maybe starting a foundation or something that could help people who are going through tough times," Bruce proposed, excited about the idea of turning his ordeal into something positive. "That sounds like a perfect way to use your experience for good," Thomas agreed, his face lighting up with the idea. With renewed determination and a clearer sense of purpose, Bruce was ready to take the next steps. He knew that true wealth wasn't in the money he had recovered, but in the lessons learned and the relationships strengthened along the way. He was ready to begin the next chapter of his life, a chapter that would be marked not by the pursuit of material wealth, but by the pursuit of a legacy of compassion, support, and integrity. After the resolution of the legal case with Helena, Bruce found himself in a period of deep reflection and renewal. As he walked along the city's riverbank, a place he had chosen to ponder recent events, the flowing water seemed to symbolize the constant stream of new opportunities and experiences now unfolding before him. "It's truly a new beginning," Bruce murmured to himself, watching the sun's reflection on the water. In this phase of renewal, Bruce decided to dedicate more of himself to the people around him. He increased his involvement in the restaurant, not just as a partner but also as a mentor to the young staff. It was common to see him talking with the team, sharing life lessons, and listening attentively to their stories and dreams. One sunny afternoon, while reviewing the inventory at the restaurant, Bruce called Mia, a young waitress who showed great potential. "Mia, I've noticed your hard work and dedication," Bruce began, smiling to encourage her. "How would you feel about a training opportunity for a management position?" Mia, surprised and visibly emotional, responded, "Really, Mr. Bruce? I would love that chance." "Excellent," Bruce nodded. "I believe everyone deserves a chance to grow. Let's set some goals for you and see how we can develop your skills." This new approach brought a renewed energy to the work environment, making the restaurant not just a business but a community of individuals who supported each other. Additionally, Bruce launched the foundation he had planned with Thomas. They established the New Beginnings Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping those facing financial and personal adversity. Bruce often found himself at fundraising events and community meetings, where his story of resilience served as inspiration. "It's amazing to see the impact we're starting to have," Bruce commented to Thomas during a foundation planning meeting. "To think that something so good could come from such difficult times." Thomas nodded, sharing the sense of accomplishment. "You've turned your ordeal into something that's helping many. That's more valuable than any sum of money." Bruce also began to reevaluate his personal life. He spent more time with friends and family, reconnecting with old acquaintances, and strengthening bonds that had been neglected during his years of turmoil. These rekindled relationships brought a new layer of happiness and satisfaction to his life. As Bruce prepared the restaurant for closing one night, he reflected on the changes he had made. The place was quiet, with only the soft sound of ambient music filling the air. He smiled, feeling a peace he hadn't known in years. Life had taught him many hard lessons, but it had also shown him that there is always room for growth and renewal. Locking the restaurant's door, Bruce felt an anticipation for the future. He knew new challenges and opportunities lay ahead, but now he felt equipped to face them with a grateful and open heart. As he walked home under the starry sky, he thought about the next chapter of his life, ready to embrace all that was to come. As Bruce and Thomas's restaurant continued to thrive, its fame spread beyond the city, attracting the attention of renowned culinary critics and gastronomic organizations. The originality of their themes and the quality of their service were constantly in the spotlight, earning them invitations to participate in prestigious culinary events. On a rainy autumn afternoon, Bruce received a call that would mark another turning point. It was the organizer of one of the most coveted food festivals in the country, the National Gourmet Festival. "Bruce, it's an honor to speak with you. I've been following the incredible success of your restaurant." The voice on the other end of the line sounded enthusiastic. "We would love to invite you to be one of the keynote speakers at our festival. Your story of overcoming adversity and achieving success is sure to inspire many." Surprised and flattered, Bruce accepted the invitation with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Thank you, I'm truly honored. It will be a pleasure to share our journey and the lessons we've learned along the way." In preparation for the festival, Bruce worked closely with Thomas to create an exclusive menu to present. They spent hours at the restaurant, testing new recipes and refining their signature dishes to ensure every detail was perfect. When the day of the festival arrived, Bruce stood before an audience of hundreds of culinary enthusiasts, renowned chefs, and critics. With a click on the microphone, he began to speak, his voice firm and clear echoing through the hall. "Good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to be here today. I want to tell you a story not just about food, but about resilience, friendship, and redemption." Bruce continued, narrating the difficulties he faced, from losing his fortune to betrayal and rebirth through the restaurant. "Every challenge we face can be turned into an opportunity. Through the support of true friends and hard work, we transformed a small restaurant into a symbol of hope and culinary innovation." After the speech, Bruce and Thomas received a standing ovation. Many attendees approached to express their admiration and gratitude for sharing such a personal and inspiring story. The recognition didn't stop there. In the following days, several culinary publications featured articles about Bruce's presentation, praising his honesty and the exceptional quality of his cuisine. The restaurant saw an influx of visitors, eager to taste the food that had such a powerful story behind it. Encouraged by the success and recognition, Bruce found a new passion in actively participating in the culinary community, contributing his ideas and learning from his peers. This new phase not only reinforced his reputation as a restaurateur, but also solidified his role as an inspiring influencer in the industry. As the restaurant closed after another busy day, Bruce reflected on how his life had changed. He had not only rebuilt his career, but also contributed to the culinary culture in a way he never imagined possible. Now, as he prepared the restaurant for another day of work, Bruce was ready to explore new horizons. After all, with each recognition, he felt more motivated to innovate and expand his reach, eager to see what the future held. As Bruce's restaurant prepared for another busy evening, he sat quietly in his office, a small and cozy space he had transformed into a refuge for moments of reflection. Surrounded by cookbooks, photos of memorable events, and thank-you letters from customers and staff, Bruce often found himself lost in thoughts about the whirlwind of events that had marked his life. One night, after dinner, Thomas entered the office to find him deep in thought. "Thoughtful tonight, Bruce?" Thomas asked, sitting across from him. Bruce looked up, a serene smile on his face. "Just reflecting on everything we've been through," he replied. "In many ways, each challenge, each mistake, and each victory taught me something vital." Thomas nodded, encouraging him to continue. "Well," Bruce began, "I learned that self-respect is fundamental. I lost so much of myself trying to live up to external expectations, with the luxury. But I rediscovered my true essence here, in the warmth of this restaurant, among friends and food." Thomas listened intently, recognizing how much they both had grown. Bruce continued, "Humility then became my most constant companion. The fall was hard, but it taught me that no matter how high you are, the world has a way of reminding you of life's fundamental truths." "That's true," Thomas agreed. "And what about giving and receiving help?" "That transformed my worldview," Bruce said with conviction. "I was so used to being independent, to controlling everything, but I learned there's incredible strength in admitting when you need help and in reaching out to others. The community we've built here, it wouldn't have been possible without us both giving and receiving." Thomas smiled, remembering all the moments they had supported each other. "And that led me to a new philosophy of life," Bruce continued. "One that truly values human connections above all else. Money, status, that fades. But relationships, the impact we have on people's lives, that lasts." "You have a gift for that," Thomas said, placing a hand on Bruce's shoulder. "Making people feel valued and important." Bruce nodded, grateful for the observation. "Every person who walks through those doors has a story, and each one contributes to ours. It's a wonderful and intricate web of interconnected lives, isn't it?" "Absolutely," Thomas replied, standing up. "And speaking of stories, I think it's time we start writing the next chapter." Bruce stood up, energized by the conversation. "Yes, we have many plans to realize. Let's get to it." Together, they left the office, ready to face another night at the restaurant, each interaction, each smile exchanged with customers and staff reinforcing the lessons Bruce had learned and now lived every day. Bruce's journey from ruin to redemption had been long and filled with learning, but every step had been worth it, shaping him into a better man, a wiser leader, and a more dedicated friend. As the seasons changed and the years accumulated, Bruce's life grew richer not only in experiences but also in relationships. The restaurant, always bustling with energy and laughter, became a melting pot where new friendships formed, many with Bruce at the heart of these connections. One day, during a community event at the restaurant that Bruce and Thomas often organized to promote local art and culture, Bruce found himself talking with Elena, an artist whose vibrant paintings were displayed on the restaurant's walls that evening. "Elena, your work is truly inspiring," Bruce commented as they watched the guests admire the vivid colors and abstract forms of the paintings. Elena, a middle-aged woman with eyes that seemed to paint stories as vivid as her works, smiled. "Thank you, Bruce. It's an honor to have my work displayed here. This place has such a wonderful, welcoming energy." Bruce nodded, his gaze sweeping over the lively room. "I'm glad you feel that way. I believe spaces like this should be shared, a blank canvas for everyone's stories." The conversation between Bruce and Elena naturally flowed into their worldviews, discussing the importance of art in human expression and community connection. By the end of the night, a new friendship had formed, based on mutual respect and admiration for each other's journeys. On another occasion, Bruce was approached by Simon, a young chef who had recently moved to the city. Simon came to the restaurant as a customer, intrigued by its reputation and the story of its owner. "You're Bruce, right?" Simon began, extending his hand. "I've heard a lot about you and how you turned adversity into success. I'm trying to start my career here, and your story is quite inspiring." Bruce, always ready to offer a listening ear and sincere advice, invited Simon to sit with him. They talked about the hardships and joys of the culinary world, about business, and about life in general. "What I've learned, Simon," Bruce said thoughtfully, "is that the true riches of life are the relationships we build. No matter how much money you make, the people you help and those who help you are the real treasure." Simon nodded, clearly moved by Bruce's words. "I hope to build something as meaningful as you have here." "You will," Bruce affirmed with an encouraging smile. "Just remember to keep your intentions genuine and your values clear." Bruce's friendships extended beyond casual encounters. He made it a point to nurture these relationships, hosting private dinners at his home, attending important events in his friends' lives, and always offering his restaurant as a space for celebrations and gatherings. With each new friendship, Bruce reaffirmed his belief in the value of human connections. He saw each person as a unique universe, valuing them for their intrinsic qualities, not for their possessions or status. As the restaurant closed after another successful night, Bruce reflected on how each new friend had brought light and color into his life, much like Elena's works on the restaurant walls. He knew that the lessons learned from each of them would be everlasting, a testament to the power of kindness and the human spirit. After a successful night at the restaurant, Bruce and Thomas sat in the office with maps and documents spread across the table. The soft lamplight cast dancing shadows over the expansion plans and lists of potential cities for new restaurants. They were immersed in an animated discussion about the future of their growing venture. "Look, Bruce, I really think we should consider opening our next restaurant in Springfield," Thomas suggested, pointing to the map. "It's a growing city with a vibrant community and an emerging culinary scene." Bruce, pondering the suggestion, stroked his chin. "Springfield is a great option, yes. And what do you think about also exploring something on the coast? We could attract both tourists and locals." Thomas smiled, excited by Bruce's expansive vision. "That sounds fantastic. A blend of local flavors with our innovative touch could really stand out there." As they discussed the details, Bruce reflected on how far they had come. "You know, Thomas, a few years ago, I couldn't have imagined being here, planning not just one, but several new restaurants." Thomas, looking at Bruce with admiration and respect, replied, "You deserve this, Bruce. You've turned your adversities into something incredibly positive. And that inspires all of us." With the plans taking shape, Bruce felt increasingly excited and motivated. They decided to send teams to explore potential sites in the chosen cities, gathering data on demographics, competition, and local preferences. A few weeks later, at a community event hosted at the restaurant, Bruce shared the news about the expansion with guests, including friends, family, and loyal customers. "Thanks to all your support, we're planning to bring our passion for culinary arts and hospitality to other cities," Bruce announced, raising his glass in a toast. The crowd applauded enthusiastically, and many came up to congratulate him. Among the guests was Clara, a local entrepreneur who had been one of the restaurant's first customers. "Bruce, you're an inspiration," she said with a warm smile. "Seeing your growth reminds us that with dedication and courage, we can achieve amazing things." Bruce, touched by Clara's words, felt a deep sense of gratitude. "Thank you, Clara. Without the community and friends like you, none of this would be possible." As the night progressed, Bruce reflected on every step of his journey. With each new friendship, every challenge overcome, and every success, he was more convinced of the power of resilience and hard work. The future not only looked bright, it was filled with limitless possibilities. As the event wound down, Bruce and Thomas retreated to the restaurant's terrace, gazing at the stars. "Ready for the next chapter, my friend?" Thomas asked, putting an arm around Bruce's shoulders. "Ready as ever," Bruce replied, a glimmer of determination and hope in his eyes. Together, they were prepared to take their vision to new horizons, eager for what the future held. That quiet night, as the starry sky stretched above them, Bruce and Thomas stood on the restaurant's terrace, each star shining as a testament to the endless possibilities still to come. Bruce, with a thoughtful gaze directed at the horizon, reflected on the extraordinary journey he had traveled. "You know, Thomas," Bruce began, his voice soft and laden with emotion, "when I look back at everything we've been through, I feel an immense gratitude. Not just for the victories, but for the battles too." Thomas, listening intently, nodded in agreement. "Yes, it was the battles that showed the true strength of your character, Bruce. You didn't just survive, you thrived and helped others do the same." Bruce sighed, a mix of relief and contentment filling his chest. "I've thought a lot about the legacy I want to leave. It's not just about the success of the restaurants or the money we can make. It's more than that." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I want to be remembered as someone who lived with courage, who faced darkness with his head held high, and who, above all, treated people with dignity and love. I want our legacy to be one of hope, showing that no matter how hard life may seem, there's always a path to the light." Thomas, moved by his friend's words, nodded fervently. "And you will be, Bruce. You already are. The community you've helped build here, the lives you've touched, all of it is evidence of your impact." Bruce looked around at the restaurant that had become much more than a place to eat. It was a place where people found comfort, where they were heard and valued, and where they could learn about the resilience and strength of the human spirit. "I hope that when people think of me and what we've done here, they feel inspired to reach out, to help someone, to make a difference. That our legacy inspires the next generation to build an even stronger and more loving community." With his eyes now fixed on the stars, Bruce felt a deep peace, knowing he had faced his greatest fears and emerged not just intact, but with a new understanding of what truly mattered in life. His heart was full of hope for the future, a hope he was determined to share with everyone around him. The conversation between the two friends continued into the night, filled with laughter and memories, but also with plans and dreams for the days to come. As the soft light of dawn began to paint the sky in hues of pink and gold, Bruce and Thomas knew that together, they were ready to face any challenge that lay ahead, strengthened by the past and illuminated by the promise of a bright future.
So, if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support and see you in the next videos.